you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the iTest, another week there, here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. And Pierre, I don't know, last week I had to ship some stuff up to a friend in Quebec, and it was really turning into a big project. But I'll tell you what, I am psyched that we have our new sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics, because I will use them going forward, Pierre. I hate shipping stuff. I'd rather get a root canal than have to deal with the carrier quotes and the follow-ups, only for my stuff to get stuck at customs for weeks, and no one knows what's going on. We have finally found a solution here. It's TCS. These guys can move anything, anywhere in the world, and not just stuff either. They actually move some NHLers' dogs around after they've been traded. Trusted by the little pros, these guys are on the ball. No follow-ups, automatic emails, online portals, and the best part, they have their house customs department, so I never need to worry about customs delays again. Drop the guys a line for a free consultation at sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that's sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. We are psyched to have them on board, Pierre.
Michael Maisel and his team do a phenomenal job. Really, really grateful to have them on board, and they're real hockey people too. They don't just watch the games, they play them. So neat that they would come on board. So thanks to everybody at TCS. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, listen, we've got another great episode in store. At the bottom of the hour, at the half-hour mark, we will be joined by Sean Coffey. He is the agent for Lane Hutson, who will make his NHL debut tonight, Pierre, against the Detroit Red Wings in his native Michigan. No news yet on Luke Tuch. It sounds like he's going to sign, but it's not official yet, I guess, right?
No, not official yet on Luke Tuch. Gavin Brindley is official now. Columbus out of Michigan. Frankie Nazer out of Michigan signed with Chicago, already scored a goal. Yeah. We're seeing more and more guys start to sign, obviously. So interesting times for sure. I think the big shoe that's going to drop eventually is going to be out of BC. You know, we've already seen Cutter Gauthier sign. What happened with Ryan Leonard? What happens with Will Smith? Does Gabe Perreault stay at BC? Does he leave to go to the pros? Does potentially other stuff happen? I don't think Jacob Fowler will sign. I think Jacob Fowler will be going back to Boston College. We don't know that for sure. We just don't.
No. And the other thing too, McGuire did not go to Winnipeg. He's going to stay another year at Michigan for those that didn't see that. So quickly off the top here, Pierre, before we get into all the crazy NHL action over the weekend and the crazy action to come tonight, tomorrow night in this final week of the regular season, your reaction to that final between Boston College and Denver, that Denver won 2-0. Pierre, I'll just say quickly before you speak, we nailed it though. They became a different team, Denver I'm speaking of, in the tournament. They went into a great neutral zone trap. They just controlled that neutral zone. They got great goaltending, played great defensive hockey. I thought that was the difference.
So was maturity. They were a much more mature team. They had to battle through a lot more adversity, I thought, this season than BC did. I know everybody talked about their high-flying offense in Denver. It's because of the style of play more than anything else. But, Jimmy, I would tell you this. I was with you at the UMass Amherst Denver game. Denver should have lost. Yep. I was at the Cornell Denver game. Denver should have lost. I watched Denver play in their semifinal game. Denver should have lost. In the final, Denver was large and in charge the first 40 minutes of that game. The last 20, they weren't.
Nope.
You talked about Matt Davis. Matt Davis was a huge difference maker in that game. So what this tells you, at least tells me, the maturity of a lot of the Denver players made a big difference. Yeah. Guys that had been around for their national championship 2 years ago when they won in Boston, when they beat University of Michigan, guys that are, a little bit older in terms of chronologically where they are in the birth date calendar, makes a difference. It's hard to win with 18-year-old players against 21 and 22 and even 23-year-old players. It's just hard to do. Yep. It's hard to do. And it's not a knock on BC, by the way. As I think most of our viewers know, we're big proponents of what BC's done, what BU's done, what Maine did this year, what UMass Amherst did. Like all these teams did great jobs. but you got to give Denver credit. I didn't think they could beat BC. I didn't. I personally did not. I didn't think they could. If BC had played the first 40 minutes like they played the last 20, they would not have lost.
I hear you. Let me ask you.
And Matt Davis deserves.
Yeah.
And the goalie for Denver deserves a huge amount of credit.
Well, first, just quickly on Davis before I ask you this question. When he made that flying save, he came across Pierre. It took me right back. I forget who it was on. I should look it up. But Tim Thomas had a save like that in Game 7 against Tampa Bay. I don't know if you remember who it was on, but I remember him kind of coming across the net like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I remember the play. I just don't remember who it was on.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Man, he was just
check it out.
Yeah, you know what? It's just like when you see a guy do that and you're the opposing team, it's got to get in your head a bit like, this guy's in a zone. I mean, this is going to be hard. And that it builds, right? I mean, when you're facing a goalie like that and he's making save after save and miraculous saves at that, it builds up and it becomes a mental block. I don't care what anyone says. It's just the way it goes sometimes, especially in a big game like that. But Pierre, before the game, I don't know if you saw this, but Cutter Gauthier.
But make sure you reported correctly.
I am.
Okay.
There's been different reports, and I will clarify.
Yeah. Okay.
All I've seen, I know there's like 3 different versions of what he said, but all I've seen is where he said there's going to be tears on the other side.
Okay.
And he's on the record saying that, but then there are other stories about stuff. People are exaggerated and made up stuff. But that's all I saw, and that's the only thing I'm bringing up here.
Okay, good.
If you're a coach, you're his coach, and you hear that he said that, are you upset? Is it bulletin board material, or do you like the swagger?
I don't mind. I mean, prefer not to have any kind of bulletin board material.
Mm-hmm.
But I think athletes are athletes. Every guy's different. Some guys. What happens if the Rangers lose after Mark Messier says, "I guarantee we're going to win"?
Right.
What happens if they lose? So then all of a sudden, Mark Messier's not a good leader. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a bad, you know what I mean? So Joe Namath had one of the best quotes of all time, when the New York Jets won the Super Bowl, guaranteeing that they would beat the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteeing whatever, and so everybody's different. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I used to love Pierre. One of my favorites, and I was right there in the scrum when he did it, was PK Subban in 2014. The practice before they took off for Boston to go down for Game 7. And you were at that game. He gave you a nice big smooch after they won that after the game. And he said, I can't wait to go down there and quiet that crowd down. And he did it.
Yeah, that's all that stuff's good. I don't. But
yeah,
he didn't do that by himself, by the way.
Oh, no, he did not.
That's the thing about hockey. Mess gets a lot of credit, and he justifiably so. I mean, he was an unbelievable player, especially that was like in the meat of his career. He was unbelievable. Yes. There were a lot of other guys that were really good. Adam Graves was really good. Brian Leach was really good. Mike Richter was really good. There were a lot of guys that were really good.
Yes.
That, if they don't stand and deliver, I don't know if Mess's quote really resonates anymore. So I want to give Cutter Gauthier a pass in this. I know a lot of people taking a run. I don't think it's fair.
I was actually going to say I liked it. I think the game needs more of that. I think it made it fun. It's entertainment.
Yeah, it's no fun when you lose. Oh, Jimmy, you know what? I got to tell you this. I remember after we won the Cup in '91 in Minnesota,
mm-hmm.
Scotty and I were walking out of the rink to the bus that was taking us to the airport. And he had been part of 3 losing teams in St. Louis where they got to the Stanley Cup final and they lost.
Yep.
And I remember saying to him, I can't even imagine what it would be like to go this far and to lose. I can't even imagine what that would be like. And he said, trust me, it's not pretty.
No, it's not.
I can't imagine what it's like to go. I've never been to an NCAA final and lost. I've never been there. I've been to the quarters in division at Babson. I've been to the semis. I've been to a lot of different, but I've never been to the final.
Yeah.
Been to the final in the Stanley Cup, but I've never been to the final in college.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I know just from covering the 2013 Bruins, Pierre, and the 2019 Bruins, just being in that dressing room after, I mean, it's like a funeral. It's brutal. And just, that these guys for a span of basically 2 months, you're pouring your heart and soul physically and mentally into it. And then just to have it end like that, it's hard. It's hard for sure. But Pierre, let's get to the pro level because there was some great games over the weekend. I thought that Red Wings Leafs game was really an exciting game. I mean, I was covering the Bruins Penguins,
but I watch this guy.
That was fun.
Did you watch my pony on defense for Detroit, Simon Edmondson?
Yep.
So it begs the question, what the heck took them so long to get him into Detroit?
Well, what's your thing you say about Stevie?
I know, better underdeveloped than overrated than underdeveloped. Yeah. So all I'm going to say is I've been telling you since October.
Yes.
This guy's really good. And he is. You know who else is really good? Lucas Raymond is really good.
Oh, my gosh.
Lucas Raymond is really good, man.
He really has. He's come into his own real. I mean, I was very impressed.
And were you concerned about Samsonov?
Yes.
I was.
I am.
At the end of that game, I was like, okay, I know they think he's good.
Yep.
But I'm watching that and I'm going, I don't know. That's not winning in the playoffs.
No. And you know what else isn't winning in the playoffs? Is another Russian goalie right now who's really, I mean, I don't know what rock bottom is to you, but it seems like he's hitting rock bottom right now at the worst possible time. And that's Georgiev for the Colorado Avalanche. Pierre, 7-0 to the Winnipeg Jets, a team that we said is not a good matchup for that team, for that Colorado Avalanche squad.
It's not a good one. The tail of the tape and goal, Hellebuck wins. Doesn't matter what happens the rest of the way. I mean, Colorado can win the series. Hellebuck's still a better goalie.
Yeah.
He is. He's just a better goalie.
Yeah.
So the thing is that they're gonna have to change a lot of their dynamic in Colorado if they're gonna win that series. And we've talked about how I think Winnipeg's comfortable going into any playoff series this year, probably the most comfortable they've been in a long time. And we're efforting to get Mark Chipman on the show, by the way, this week.
Great. Good news.
We have to give some love out to Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg has done a fantastic job this entire season. I know every team goes like this a little, but they haven't had a lot of that.
No,
they had a little of that, but not
they've been more like bumpy, but there's been no drop.
Right.
It's been more bumpy at times, but they smooth it out. And Pierre, they've kind of there's something. I mean, obviously there was some change in the team, the roster in the offseason, but you can just sense there's I don't know what the word is to pinpoint it. More unity, so to speak, out there. They just seem more of a team this year. When they're on the ice, they seem more in sync. And I love watching that team right now. I really do.
Well, there are no sideshow distractions.
Yeah.
Like Velarde's not going to cause problems there. Morrissey's not going to cause problems. Pionk's not going to cause problems. Brendan Dillon's not going to cause problems. Iafalo's not going to cause problems. They got guys that are on the straight and narrow. They're not going to watch Nikolai Ehlers score a goal and watch the reaction after he scores.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. It's it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're all buying into the same program that Rick Bowness is selling, which is good for Rick and Scotty Arniel. It is. It's great for those guys. But now, the biggest thing with Winnipeg, and their fans know this, they got to get it done in the playoffs.
Yes, exactly.
They got to get it done in the playoffs.
All this is for naught. I know.
Yeah, don't tell us about how good your team is. Just go get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah. But that's what I like. They're not talking about it. We may be, but they're just focused.
No, but in years past,
exactly,
they were talking about.
They're getting caught up in the hype. And by the way, Colorado yesterday 3-0 lead heading into the third period against the Vegas Golden Knights, and they blow that and lose in overtime. So I don't know if you saw Pierre the press conference. Yeah, did you see the press conference after the Winnipeg game versus the press conference after yesterday?
No.
Okay, so Bednar was very firm and behind the goalie after the 7-0 game. He still, nope, that's my guy. And then it was sort of little hesitancy. He was really after yesterday. And I wonder, Pierre, do you think about it at least in the last game? Maybe here, just give the backup a look.
I don't know. I don't know the personalities of the people involved.
Yeah.
I wish I knew better. I just don't know the personality of the people. I could tell you if it was, Marc-Andre Fleury, or if it was Marty Brodeur, people like that, Roberto Luongo, people that I knew really well. because they were coming up when I was really working at it, and seeing the guys all the time. I can't speak to these guys. I just don't know them all enough.
Yeah. By the way, that's a great call on Marc-Andre Fleury, because we all know what happened in 16 and 17. I mean, he took it like the man that he is, and he did what's right for the team. And I always love him.
You know what? When Matt Murray was hurt,
he came in and did the job.
He came in and did a number, especially up in Ottawa.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you that. He when they needed him in Ottawa, he was there for them.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of the 2010 Olympics. Marty had a tough game against Switzerland, Brodeur, and they pulled him out. And he was sitting right next to me for good chunks of that Olympic tournament after he got pulled and Luongo went in. And he was nothing but a great teammate. He might have been mad, but he was nothing but a great teammate. And it kind of reminded me of 2002 when Curtis Joseph got pulled after they lost. And in came this young guy, Brodeur.
Yep.
And he was good.
There you go.
Good. And there was a lot of anger and angst around Canada when, Curtis got pulled and Marty went in, but Marty was able to deliver just like Roberto was able to deliver in 2010.
All right. Well, good stuff. Let's get right to our guest, a special guest here today. You saw on Friday, our man Lane Hutson signed with the Montreal Canadiens. He will make his debut tonight in Detroit, his native Michigan. And on to join us now is his agent from Cortex Management, Sean Coffey. Sean, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good, good. It must be an exciting time for Lane to finally make his NHL debut, huh?
Very exciting. Very exciting. Looking forward to it. So we're counting down now. Ryan Barnes, who's just as much a part of Lane's career as he lives in Detroit. He'll be there tonight.
Oh, great.
Montreal tomorrow for the home debut. So yeah, really excited.
When did you guys know that he was the real deal, talking about Lane?
Probably I coached against him when he was his U14 year, Junior Eagles split season versus the North Jersey Avalanche. And I was just getting going in hockey again. I'm like, who's this guy? They didn't make any like this when I played.
You know what's interesting, Sean? I got a call from Scotty Bowman. I'm going to say probably around that year. And Scotty was spending a lot of time in the Midwest then, and he had seen Lane play, and he called me up and he says, I drafted a guy who was really good, who was undersized. His name was Phil Housley.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm watching this guy play, and he goes, I'm seeing a lot of Phil Housley in this guy, Pierre. Remember his name, Lane Hutson. And then it turns out that Lane's brother ends up being a locker mate to my son Ryan in Penticton.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, it's kind of a crazy deal. But I'll never forget Scotty calling me up when he says, I saw this guy. He reminds me a lot at the same age of Phil Housley. And, he's not very big, but boy, is he good. He's got great hockey sense. So that's kind of when Scotty knew. And that's kind of when I started to follow along on Lane Hutson.
Yeah.
And Pierre's been campaigning for him for a while now, telling everybody in Montreal what they've got coming.
That's good. No, I listen to the pod, guys. I know.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take us through, I guess, from Thursday till now, what that's been like for you and for Lane, and just the whirlwind, I guess, of emotions, because obviously a tough loss for BU, but also the start of a new career as well.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that this was the most likely scenario, right? Just I think when you have a player playing in college, like, they're not just hockey decisions, right? In Lane's case, you're at Boston University, you have one brother there, you have another brother coming, so you always want to be careful in being overly presumptive. But if you look at Lane and the decision just from a hockey standpoint, he had clearly accomplished everything that he set out to do on an individual level. They came up short 2 years in a row at the Frozen Four, and maybe to some extent you're thinking, I just saw a player or two deciding to go back to school in the last couple of weeks for unfinished business. I think in Lane's case, though, he was ready, and so going into the Frozen Four, everything was ironed out, and you were just hoping that, hoping for BU that they had a better result. And then after Thursday night, you want to let the dust settle and allow him to have time to, hang out with the guys, and then later that afternoon on Friday, share with the world that you're headed to Detroit.
Awesome.
Jimmy, I got to ask Sean this. One of the unique parts about BU this year is the president of Montreal Canadiens, Jeff Gorton. His son Jack is at BU. Obviously, Ken Hughes' son is at BU. How different a negotiation is this when you're so plugged in to one player and the parents of two players are part of the same team? Because that I don't, I've been around a long time. That usually doesn't happen very much.
No, very, very unique. So, it's not like, he's general manager of the LA Kings who might only get into the building once, where, Ken and Jeff were in the building quite a bit and we saw them quite a bit. So there's always informal chatter, but I think collectively both parties knew that this was where, Lane should be at the end of the season. So from a contract standpoint, it was easy.
Nice. Watching him grow as a player, what have you noticed over the last 2 seasons that sort of stood out above any other developments?
I remember Jay Pandolfo told me at the start of this year that about halfway through his freshman season, Kim Brandvold at the start of practice said, "Hey, watch, Lane's never second for a drill. He's always first." And then he was like, "Wow, he's right. He's always going first." And so just that, his competitive nature, and he is someone who is singularly focused on hockey. And I think for young players today, that's getting harder and harder to do. Whether it be being a college kid, social media, all of the noise, but that's one of the a couple of reasons I think that's going to drive his ultimate success in making that jump, because it's all he wants to do.
Pierre, it's like you say all the time with practice. I mean, you really tell what a player's about with how he practices. And I remember Jay Pandolfo telling us earlier this season, that's what impressed him the most, was how much he loves to come to practice and how much he wants to keep learning every day.
One of the most underrated parts for agents, for scouts, for managers is how coachable is a player. And how hard does he work in practice, not just on the ice and off the ice. And you can get all these internet reports as much as you want. Half of them are fake. Sean knows. He lives in the rinks. He knows. And so that's when I see people that actually have boots on the ground and are doing the work, I trust them. Yeah. It's the internet stuff that I don't trust, because I know those guys aren't going to the rink. You got to be at the rink. Sean, I wanted to ask you about, I have an ideology on where I think Lane needs to be physically. And I'm talking about weight-wise. Do you guys have a target for him?
I think, he's grown quite a bit. Like if you look at his U17 photo from the NTDP season, I mean, he really looked young then, right? So he's always kind of lagged behind, I think, physically. But he's an interesting case, because for someone who is undersized, there's nothing soft about his game. Like even starting lineups, like he skates from the goal line out to the blue line as fast as he can.
Yeah.
And I think he might not be as, using Quinn Hughes as a comparable. I think, Quinn Hughes is an unbelievable skater, but Lane makes up for it with just the motor. Like for how skilled he is, there's not a lot of soft skill. He still has a violent stick, really good stick positioning. So I think he'll find out soon what adjustments he needs to make in terms of boxing out at the net front, gap control and getting to spots maybe a little bit earlier to defend a rush. But that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, because if there's anyone that can make those adaptations quickly, I think it will be him.
No, I would agree with that. I'm just talking about the sheer brute strength defending from the hash mark to the icing line, or from the corner to the pole, the near side pole. That's hard to do. Yeah. And so my target range, and I will tell you, and you probably have already heard me, I think he needs that 7 to 10 pounds of muscle. Yeah. And I think when he does, he can be, a 20 to 25 minute guy. Yeah. But until he does that, I don't care what his motor is. Yeah. If Tom Wilson wants to destroy him, he will. Do you know what I mean? And so that's all I'm saying. And that's, I think he understands that, though. And it speaks to what you're talking about, the character of the player. I think that's a good point. Yeah.
No question.
Sean, just in terms of getting these 2 games in right now and everything we're just speaking about right now, how important is that? Just for him to get that taste and be able to sort of think about it a lot, kind of evaluate what I learned in those 2 games. and have a whole off season to do that. How important was it for him to get to those 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you're a high school player who gets called up to varsity at the end of the season for a game, or you get invited to go play in the USHL for the last weekend, the season prior to you going out there, or you get a chance to play in the NHL right after your college season. I just think it's a really important snapshot to set the intention for your off season, and just to not feel, then there will always be novelty during someone's rookie season, but I think for the player, just to know going into the off season really what it feels like, it's really important.
I think that's such a good point that Sean just raised, Jimmy. Sean, I want to also ask you, so he gets a 2-game dress rehearsal against Detroit, obviously, and those are massive games for Detroit. Yeah. These are going to be game 7s for Detroit. Both of them are. Yeah. So that's huge experience. And you've watched them play in the World Junior 2 years in a row. One year it went really well for the whole team, and the other year it didn't go as well. Yeah. There was a guy named Connor Bedard that kind of fouled it up a little bit, but that's okay. But my question is, at the end of the 2 games, and if Laval is still going, which they should be in terms of the last weekend of the season, does he go there?
I don't believe he can.
It was
the path of there were.
So they put him on the rosters. I guess I should have said.
Yeah.
Put him on the roster.
So you see some guys that'll sign a PTO and their entry level contract but the contract doesn't start until next season.
Yep.
So he won't be eligible to go to Laval.
Okay.
World Championships.
There's been some conversations. I mean, he was there last year. I think with the international tournaments ramping up, I think a lot of current NHL veterans are going to jump at that opportunity. So just waiting to hear from Brett Peterson of what the outlook looks like there.
Got it.
Nice. How about just in terms of, he knows a couple guys on this roster that he's going on to. I heard Cole Caulfield speak earlier today. Seemed to know him pretty well. What's that like, and how great is it to have kind of some friendly faces when you arrive?
I mean, I'm sure it's huge. They're a young team. They've walking into a locker room in a place like Montreal. Lane's a pretty quiet kid, so I think for them to welcome him and take him out to dinner and put him at ease speaks a lot to their culture. And even guys like Mike Matheson, who took him out to dinner last night, speaks to his character as well.
You better have gotten him a big bonus because he's going to have the rookie dinner next year.
Yeah, that's right.
Bucks. Right. So all these free dinners now aren't going to be free next year.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And have you spoken to him today at all?
I have not. No. Today, I felt like a ticket broker today. Sharing with the Sportsnet broadcast where the parents are going to be seated, sharing some pictures of him when he was a kid. He has Pat Kane was his favorite player growing up, so they have a couple pictures of Lane's bedroom with the fat head Kane and the Hawks jersey and these big banners. So I'm sure that's going to be a treat for him tonight.
That's so good. That's a great story, Sean. Thanks for sharing. That's really good.
Thanks a lot. Well, listen, Sean, we appreciate you taking the time here, and it's an exciting time. Enjoy it. Enjoy the moment, and I know Lane will as well. And keep up the great work.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, guys. See you around soon.
All right, Sean. Way to go, Sean. Good job.
Join us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. That was good stuff. I didn't know that about Patrick Kane. That's
it's cool with the fat head. All that fat head stuff is good.
Nice. Yeah, I heard though, like Cole, on TSN 690, he was just saying how excited he was to finally have Lane here, and they've built a pretty good relationship over the years with development programs. So it's an exciting time, Pierre. And look, I like what you said about the weight he needs to put on there too, but I was unaware. And we've heard stuff from Pandolfo before, but just about how tenacious he is. That's huge to have that when you're a rather small guy at times. To have that tenacity is going to be huge.
Oh, I think so. But where Cole Caulfield's really excited, and I've said this to our good friend Mitch Melnick many times, the power play is going to be different with Lane there. It's going to open up a lot more shooting avenues for Cole. It's going to make a big difference for Suzuki as well. I don't know if they give him first power play minutes right away. I just don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, there is a certain thing you have to earn, and I think power play minutes, especially in the top power play, is one of them. But eventually, he will be there, and when he is, I think Cole Caulfield goes up big time in terms of goal scoring numbers. I really believe that.
For sure. And, another interesting thing I took from that too, Pierre, I don't know if you recall when we were heading into the NHL trade deadline, a lot of people suggesting or asking if the Canadiens will trade Mike Matheson. And you were adamant saying, no, you want this guy here. He's a great presence in the locker room. He'll be a good mentor for Lane Hutson. And boom, he's already taken him out to dinner. So there you go.
Not only that, I'd sign him to an extension. That's what I remember telling you. I said, I wouldn't trade him, and I'd also sign him to an extension. You're talking about a mature person. This is how mature Mike is. Mike could have turned pro after his junior year at Boston College, and, obviously very high-profile team. And he went back for his senior year. And he went back because there was unfinished business, and he wanted to be the leader that Coach York and Coach Brown thought he could be. And Mike Cavanaugh as well. So he went back. And so, Mike is really a special guy, Mike Matheson. He's a married guy. His wife is a former Olympian. I guess you're always an Olympian, so you're not a former Olympian. His wife's an Olympian. He's a parent. He's mature. He brings a sense of maturity and stability to the Canadiens. And he's just an amazing person. He's a kind, caring person and a leader. Yep. And I think Mike gets better now too, because he doesn't have to do as many minutes.
Exactly.
And I know he likes minutes, but at some point he'll be a more efficient player because of those lessening of the minutes.
And he's a West Islander, so he knows the market too.
Knows Montreal market.
I just think he's such a great asset for them to have.
Agreed.
Pierre, in terms of, because I saw some people asking, we'll get to the questions in a second though.
Well, before you go questions, though, you asked me yours, and then we got to talk about women's hockey, because we would be so remiss if we didn't celebrate the World Championship.
Oh, we will. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to know, in terms of Luke Tuch, how soon do you think the Canadiens fans can expect him on an NHL roster as opposed to the AHL?
There was way more growth this year in Luke's game than last year. The first 3 years was, how you were doing that roller coaster thing before? Yeah. I think that was kind of Luke. The first 3 years, there was a coaching change made. I think Luke started going like this when Jay came in with his group. And that's not to knock the previous group. It's just the numbers speak to that.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for Luke, and I know we've talked about this, he needs to establish physicality all the time. Everybody saw the shorthanded goal the other day against Denver. It was a spectacular shot. Great. Everything was great. That's what he can do. But where he makes people uncomfortable is when he's physical. And he's a big, big man. I mean, he's a big person. So I think if he can establish, I'm not saying he's going to be Tommy Wilson. Please don't.
No.
But should he play with some of those characteristics? The answer is yeah, he should. And if he does, you'll see him in a Canadian sweater faster than most people think.
All right, good stuff. Well, let's talk about that amazing game yesterday between USA and Canada. And congratulations to Canada for winning. Pierre, I have to confess, I was not tuned in. I was visiting with my new baby niece, but
congrats to the Murphy family.
Yes,
very
excited. Baby Anna. You know what? We got the Scally cap for her too. She's all set to go. So, but you watched that game, my friend, and you called me this morning, and you were so excited about it. You just raving about it. Tell us that people didn't watch it. Tell us what we missed.
Well, there's just, first of all, the American women deserve a lot of credit. They played hard. Obviously, disappointing to lose on home soil and have the Canadian national anthems, played at the end. That's really never easy for the home team. It's always difficult. I think Canada won because Marie-Philippe Poulin took her game to a whole other level, and she showed just how courageous an athlete she is. She's a phenomenal person, but she's an amazingly courageous athlete. I have a ton of respect for her. I will never forget being in Korea after the Americans won. The Lamoureux, obviously were hugely influential in that gold medal game. And I remember meeting Marie-Philippe Poulin outside. It was either Canada House or USA House, I forget. And she was awesome. You know, Jimmy, I hate to say this, but I'd like to share. I had just had cancer surgery 4 weeks before, and she was awesome. She was just. We talked about hockey, yes, but you want to know how I was feeling. It was tremendous, and she was, you know, obviously she was down. They had lost, but the way she carried herself, she was such a professional. And then to see her yesterday on the big stage, doing as well as she did, and I know she wasn't 100%. That was awesome to see. And I couldn't have been more excited for a young lady out of Colgate University, Daniel Serdachny. She scored the golden goal. Always a huge thing on your resume. Obviously, it lasts forever. It never goes away. And that was right in her backyard. Utica's about 30 minutes away from Hamilton, New York, where Colgate is. I was so happy for her. So there was a lot of good moments in that. I thought the tournament was amazing, all run by the IIHF and the people in Utica. So hats off to them. But it just shows you the level that women's hockey is. And there's almost like a passing of the torch going on now, Jimmy.
Yes, that's where I want to go.
Have older women playing. You can see, if you watch the college games in particular, and some of the women that were playing for both Canada and the U.S., the younger women are really becoming superior players. They are. And that's not to knock the elder women, but the truth is, just like the guys' game, the older you get, there's always somebody that's trying to replace you.
Yeah.
And you can see there's some really good young women coming along, really good.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I know one thing you did want to talk about too, USA. Do you see them in terms of starting to get younger? Are they going to go that direction, you believe?
It sure looks like they're trying to. You know, it sure looks like they're trying to. They're trying to integrate more young players into onto the roster. And there's so many good young ones. You know, all you need to do is go watch ECAC women's games, go watch Hockey East games, go watch WCHA games. University of Michigan's now going to have a program, which is obviously going to be huge for women's hockey in the Midwest. So everybody knows about Duluth, and everybody knows about Wisconsin, and everybody knows obviously about University of Minnesota. So I think women's hockey is in such a good spot right now. It's very exciting. It's great for the game. It's fantastic for the entire game. It really is.
I mean, so many people were talking about it this morning, Pierre. I mean, I got off the phone with you. I got online, and it was all over the place. So, I mean, the buzz around the game right now is really popping. So
I had a former NHL coach call me about 20 minutes before you and I started the show. And all he's doing now, he's out of the coaching business, but he's going around helping coaches. This is his give back to the game.
Wow.
And he was talking about the eye test because he watches.
Right.
And he said, you know, what I'd like to see you guys do is bring some women coaches on there. And I told Jim, it's funny that he had called me today.
Yeah.
I told Jimmy, I said, I'd really like to get a bunch of the women's coaches on.
Let's do it.
But one in particular I'd really like to get on, Matt DeRozier from Clarkson. I think, you know, he's as good as any coach on the guy's side or the girl's side.
Nice.
He's really good.
Great.
And, you know, there's so many. Greg Fargo at Colgate. I mean, I can go down. Mark Boulding at Yale. Chris Wells at St. Lawrence. I mean, I can go down the line. Mark Johnson at Wisconsin. There's so many good coaches. There's so many in the women's game. And I believe that's one of the reasons why it keeps rising.
Yep. And looking over here, Puck Bunny's in our comment section saying USA Hockey announced they have over 100,000 females registered to play right now. Great.
So there you go. I mean,
that's awesome.
That's all you need to know. And it just keeps growing. It's awesome to see. I can tell you right now.
League too.
What's that?
Now to have the professional league as well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing, and so I think that's why it's important we have one of those coaches on, because they're going to tell you exactly, here are the players to watch for their draft, here are the players that are really starting to make headway, here are the best young recruits coming up. We need to start knowing the names.
Yes,
because I do think there's going to be a passing of the torch. It's been since '98. It's too long ago. Let's go 2002. From there on, so 23 years ago, a lot of the same women have been playing. You know, some have left, obviously, and come back. Like Becky Keller would be one that I could think of that left and came back.
That's great.
So there's just so many. You know, Chrissy Wendell, Pohl, who's scouting for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. she may be the most talented female player I've ever seen. But she stopped playing because she wanted to be a mom. And so now she gives back to the game. She's scouting. She's working with young ladies in Minnesota. I mean, she's doing really good stuff. So there's so many. Natalie Darwitz is another one I could think of. She's done so many. I remember when she was coaching at Hamline. She's at Minnesota now. But when she was at Hamline, I remember her asking me to come speak to her team. And I was like, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. And she's like, really? I said, yeah, 100%. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
I just think it's important. And the more you see the women's game progress, that it's exciting, because once they start to play, their moms get interested, their dads get interested, their brothers get interested. And also, we're starting to create more fans.
Yep. It's great for the sport overall, not just overall. It's a great thing.
All right. Fantastic. All right. Sorry for I apologize.
No, it's all right. I love it, Pierre. It was great.
Anyways, congrats to Daniel Serdachny, the golden goal. She's the Sidney Crosby beneficiary. I didn't hear her yelling Iggy, Iggy, Iggy.
And she's already at Colgate, or she's headed there?
She was a fifth year at Colgate, so she's moving on. She'll be playing in the women's league. She's a really talented lady. She's really
sure. Yeah. All right, let's get over to the questions right now, Pierre. We got a lot lining up, so let's rock and roll here. What do we got, guys? The Puck Bunnies. Sean mentioned Lane's contract was pretty much worked out before. How would it be different for players like Tuch and others who are taking longer?
Well, I'll give you an example on Tuch. Tuch had signed what's called an ATO, and so I don't know if they put him on the roster or not. It's a different level. It's an amateur tryout agreement. And then he would eventually get put on an NHL deal afterwards. But what it would allow him to do would be to play in the American Hockey League. So that's one. It's subtle differences. They probably said to Lane's agent, he's not going to the American League. He's staying in Montreal. So, and then once it's over, he could potentially go play over at the World Championships. And I got to think USA Hockey would want him to be part of that.
Yeah. By the way, I think it was Elliot Friedman reported a couple hours ago that Macklin Celebrini has been invited to play for Canada at the World Championships.
I'm shocked. Well, I always said that Coffey would be the beneficiary of Lane Hutson being on the power play in Montreal. You know who was passing Macklin Celebrini those shots for the one-timers? Yeah, it was Lane Hutson, just on the other side. One guy's a righty, Caulfield, and one guy's a lefty, Celebrini. So you got this guy walking the line all over the place like Lane Hutson. At either side, he's equal opportunity. He can move it.
You brought up to Sean there, you asked if he might be going to World Championships there. You think Cole Caulfield's going?
I think if he has the opportunity to go, he will go. As long as he's not hurt. That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
A lot of times guys are playing at this time of the year. I've told you this before. You got to be really careful. Remember, there was a player that people were kind of saying, why wasn't he in the lineup, or why was? And I said, Jimmy, until you know, you know if the guy's hurt or not, you got to be really careful. And so you wait a couple days after the season's over just to be responsible and make sure there are no injury reports or surgeries that have to happen.
Right.
That guys aren't talking about. Everybody's kind of like, Jack Hughes had to have shoulder surgery. Well, it kind of was no secret.
Yeah, I know.
It was kind of
almost surprising that he hadn't had it. I mean, he was playing.
Everybody kind of knew.
Yeah.
But nobody wanted to say anything.
Yeah. So I hope everything goes well for him, by the way, too. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. Should Celebrini stay at BU next season? How big of a leap can he take playing with the Coles, Hutson, and Eisman?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's a great question indeed.
Owen Power is an example of that, going back to Michigan. I would be surprised in this case if Macklin went back. I'd be surprised. Yeah. And that's not a knock on college hockey, and it's not a knock on any of the guys at BU. I just think that if San Jose were to get him, or if Chicago were to get him, or Columbus were to get him, there's built-in infrastructure now with star players. Will Smith, potentially Eklund in San Jose. You got Connor Bedard and obviously Seth Jones and in Chicago, and Korchinski. And then you look at Columbus with Fantilli, with Kent Johnson. I mean, for Werenski, there are a lot of players in those places where he wouldn't have to be the go-to guy. If he had to do it by himself, I bet he'd go back.
Yeah.
But I don't think, if he gets drafted by either one of those three teams, I don't think he'll have to be that go-to guy.
I think he's gone too. We'll see. But all right, next question. Vincent Yoel. Hello again, gentlemen. Hey, what's up, Vincent? I love the idea of Matheson and Savard mentoring 5 young D-men over 2 to 3 years. Is a veteran on a team who can do the same job for our young forwards?
Great question.
That is a great question.
It's a really good.
I haven't spoken about it all. That's great.
I mean, Nick's been around a while now, but I don't know if that's kind of his thing.
Right.
He's one of those quiet leaders where he's not yelling and screaming in the dressing room. I don't know if they have that right now.
No.
Don't
I would say if things hadn't gone so south for him, and they're still south, Josh Anderson would have been a guy.
He had a lot of the other night. I think he had 7 or 8 hits in the game. I mean, he's trying. It's not that he's not trying.
Well, he's played better lately.
But again, it's not a lot happening. I don't think they can put him in that spot.
Maybe that, Pierre, we said they've got plenty of money to spend. Maybe that's a focus. Maybe that's a target on the free agent or trade market. Is
I'm gonna
get entering forward in.
I can't say the name, but this is something that was really important to me when I was in Ottawa.
I know.
And I brought it to the attention of different people in the organization, and it just couldn't get traction. And, it's unfortunate, but it is an important part of it. Just to go back to the question that was asked, I think it's really important to have that. I can just say this. Brian Trottier, ask any player in Pittsburgh, ask any player from the 91 and 92 teams how much of a difference Brian Trottier meant for our team.
Yeah.
He was
huge. All right, next question. Jeffrey B. Teams like Florida plan on resting key players, gearing up for playoffs. How difficult is it to get players up for games that are meaningless on paper, but you want them to stay healthy and sharp?
It's really hard. It's really, really difficult. And look at the Ranger game the other day against the Islanders. That's a hard game to play. They found a way to do it, just like Toronto against Detroit.
Yeah.
It's a hard game to play. They fell to their credit, Toronto fell down 4-1 in that game.
Yeah.
And they came back and forced overtime. So I give them some credit on that. Those are hard games to play.
Tampa will be in that position now too, Pierre, because I don't think they
can't go anywhere. They're locked where they are. So, that's a tough game for them to play too. The team that I really respect that's going through it now, they want to finish number 1. They can say whatever they want. They're right in your backyard. The Boston Bruins.
Oh, yeah.
You go right into Pittsburgh on Saturday night. That's a must-win for Pittsburgh. Big must win.
When they made it 4-3, I was thinking, oh, well, here you go. Here comes that desperation from Pittsburgh.
They pushed back Boston.
Pushed right back. I was impressed
Boston
with that.
Pushed right back. Yep. So that's a good example of character. So it's important to play well at this time of the year, but you also want to keep guys, especially when you can't really improve. You want to keep guys from getting hurt. You really
By the way, too, a win tonight for the Boston Bruins in any fashion clinches the Atlantic Division for them for a second straight season. All right, next question. Samuel Matei, how do you think they run Hutson's PP unit next season? You definitely want him as a QB, but what do you do to protect him, maximize output? I assume Suzuki will play a huge role to stabilize it.
Yeah, Nick will always be a huge player on any power play because he can shoot and he can pass to make a difference. But I think with Lane in particular, it's how he orchestrates the power play running from side to side on the blue line, and his skating so darn efficient. And his deception is amazingly efficient. He's not going to overpower a lot of people with his shot yet. I watched Quinn Hughes the other day blow a couple by some goaltenders, and that wasn't the way it was when he first got in the league. That will get better for Lane too.
Yeah.
But right now I see him being just a pure orchestrator, a quarterback, and in every sense of being a quarterback, basically controlling the level and the tempo of play. By
the way, too, I'm assuming you're talking about that Vancouver-Arizona game.
Yeah,
that was a hell of a game. And I just want to say, I want to give Arizona a ton of credit for the way the players have responded on the ice, Pierre, to everything that's going on off it. They have played some of their best hockey of the season in the midst of all of this. I watched the game last night again. Great game with Calgary.
They should have won that game in Calgary.
Won that game.
Calgary made a huge difference in that game.
Oh, he was huge. He was huge
in that game.
But really digging deep and really just winning. And, man, I can't wait to watch that. I know it's a sad moment, but it's also going to be an amazing atmosphere.
When they play Edmonton, their last game,
final game, against Edmonton, it's going to be
good.
Cool. So
it'd be good.
Yeah, if there's ever those are one of those. I don't like that word lock, but you might. that is the Stanley Cup for the Arizona Coyotes.
We have a new sponsor on the show too.
Yeah, we got to get one. All right.
Besides TCS, I know about Manscaped. I know about Factor. I know about TCS. I think we have another guy coming online soon too.
We do. We've got some. We'll talk about it tomorrow, but we got some good Vegas information to talk about soon. All right. Next question. Jason Logan, Murphy and Pierre, is there an age limit for playing the NCAA? Like if a pro played in the NHL 3 to 4 years, doesn't cut it, and he decided to go to college, can he play college hockey? No, and that's a big problem because that's why major junior players can't play college hockey yet. But that's the new thing that's coming. Yeah. So no, I think pro players will never come back and play in the NCAA. Yeah. I don't believe that. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy, if you're the Kings, do you want to play the Oilers or the Canucks? Man, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'll say this, by the way, speaking of Vancouver here, Lindholm's looking really good lately again. He's finding his game. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I don't have the records against both teams in front of me. Then again, I like to throw that out the door when you get to the playoffs. I'd say the Oilers just because I think the Canucks have a goalie edge. If Thatcher Demko's healthy. If he's healthy. So I would agree with you. All right. Next question. Galley, we love seeing more fights this past month. Does that mean teams will start getting more enforcers like the old days of Simon, Kordic, Probit, et cetera? No, that won't happen. But what you're going to see, and it's already starting to happen, with 6th and 7th round picks, I'll use a player, Garnet Hathaway, as an example. Bingo. Those players, college free agent, played on a lower profile team from Brown University, never put up a lot of points. He comes out and he makes an impact. Those players are abundant on a lot of college rosters, especially playing in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th line winger roles, sometimes center roles. I think that's a really important part of college evaluation, finding those types of players. So I think those are the guys people are trying to find. Yeah, that's definitely becoming a huge asset for NHL teams. All right, next question. The Puck Bunnies, with the playoffs so close, would you tell Rempe not to risk injury by going at it with So they fought, I don't know if you know, Jimmy, but they fought in junior. Oh, I know. I saw it. They fought in junior. Not go well for Rempe. So the one thing I'd say is I was there in Ottawa when Zach Ostapchuk got drafted, by Ottawa. It was a great job by the scouts. He came in. I'll never forget his camp after he was drafted. He had a phenomenal training camp. He was so good. And I remember, I think we rewarded him with at least one at preseason game, maybe 2. But I went and watched him play a lot in Vancouver. He's a talented kid. I don't think he'll be fighting Rempe. Yeah, I just don't see that. I'd be surprised. That's what everyone's thinking because they called him up. They think it's that. So this is what breaks my heart. Yeah, that guy's not a fighter. That guy's a really good player. He's a good player. I know. Who's tough. Yeah, but he's a real player. He's a real player. Oh yeah. I'm telling you, if he goes back to the American League next year, he's going to be a point-a-game player in the American League. Yep, a really good player. Yeah, I mean, that's what I. People forget about the player, and I just look at that sometimes. And all right, next question. I think we got about 4 more here. Let's roll. Kook69. What makes the AHL Hershey Bears the winningest 12-time Calder Cup winner and 25-time finalist? What is their secret? Right to the point. It's an amazing franchise. It's an amazing franchise. Their fan base is electrifying. They've got a beautiful new building. It's not that new anymore. Even in the old building, Frank Mather ran an amazing product there. Legendary American Hockey League operator. It is Hershey, PA is elite for the American Hockey League. Guys want to go play there if they have to be long-term AHLers.
They've got a great relationship with the Washington Capitals, the team that supplies them with a lot of their young players. But they can go out there and pay a lot of guys that are older that know how to play in that league. So, and that's not to take – they're allowed to do that. It doesn't take anything away. But they've been a legendary program for a very long time. Very long time.
Next question. Roy Anderson. Habs should try to get Colton Dach from Chicago, send them a Harris or Jake Evans. 2 big brothers would be fine. Like the idea?
I think size does matter. Montreal's figuring that out slowly but surely. And so we'll see. But, again, what's that?
There'll be an emphasis on that, I think, in their offseason.
I think in the offseason there will be. Yeah, I think there will be.
All right, next question. Gally, who do you think will win MVP this season? Kucherov, McKinnon, Matthews, and McDavid? Man, what a race.
What happens if Pittsburgh makes the playoffs?
Hey, I'm with you, Pierre.
But I don't think Sid will win it, but he should. Well, he should be in the
conversation.
So I'm going to say McKinnon, and I know people in Tampa be really ticked off, but it doesn't mean that I don't like Kucherov.
Yeah.
People in Edmonton will be mad that you don't say McDavid. People in Toronto will be mad. What do you mean? Austin Matthews is going to get 70-plus goals. How could he not be the MVP? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. Without Gabriel Landeskog being in Colorado and with the goaltending that they've had all year, the fact that they're even relevant in this situation, it says a lot about Nathan McKinnon.
And there'll be a lot of people upset in New York that Panarin's not in there. It's the same thing.
Panarin's great point, Jimmy. Panarin's had an amazing year.
Yep.
Unbelievable year.
Really has.
I don't know if we've ever had this many guys that have been this good.
There really is. To me, there's no wrong choice. You know what I mean?
That's just a better way to say it. I agree with you. Way better than what I said. I agree.
Regardless of who gets it, I think it's great that we're celebrating all of these players and the seasons they've had. It's been a great season in general for our Stars. All right, next question. Kook69 again. This year, there were no losers in the NCAA playoffs. Just great hockey. Congrats to Denver University. I agree. I thought it was a fabulous tournament. Had a lot of fun watching those games.
I thought the conference tournaments were great.
Mm-hmm.
The NCAA first round was amazing. I was blown away by the level of college hockey. I talked to one of the commissioners yesterday via text and just said the product's never been better and you guys should be really proud and keep building because it's just going to keep growing and getting better and better all the time.
You know what I love, Pierre, too, is how big it's getting in Canada.
Well, TSN's done a fantastic job getting the games on.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And so they deserve a lot of credit at TSN. And, the one thing is I think the coaches, again, I think the product's really good because the coaches have done a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Recruiting players, coaching players, keeping players, teach them the right things. Can you say in your heart of hearts, Jimmy, you've seen Jimmy Montgomery coach. He's a hell of a coach, right? You like him?
Yeah.
David Carl's is good or better.
Yep, I'd agree.
He's got 2 NCAA tournaments under his belt and a World Junior gold medal.
I was just going to ask you, you think he's coming back or?
Well,
we talk about all the players. There's a coach that I think has a job waiting for him if he wants it.
If he wants to leave, I do think there's in college hockey right now, I've told you this before, there's some older guys that are really good, really, really good. There's some younger guys that are elite, and there's some middle of the road age-wise that are really elite too. It'll be interesting. Part of the problem is, and what people need to know is their pensions are so much better in college than that they are in the pros.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys don't want to give that up. And I totally get it. I totally understand especially if you got a young family. It's hard because you never know how long you're going to last in the NHL. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So you could be the best coach of all time. You get stuck with a GM that doesn't like you or an owner that doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Or your goalie can't stop anything. You're going to lose your job. And then it's hard to get back. It's hard to get back, It's really hard to get back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. All right, next question. I think Fowler is a great goalie. What player could we compare him with? Thomas back in the days with Boston? No.
He's way more refined than Timmy in terms of playing.
Yes.
He's just way more refined. I think there's a little Marty. I think Marty. There's a little Marty Brodeur in there. There's a little Marty Brodeur in there. I think I've said this to you before. I know you know the story, but for our listeners and viewers, when Marty was 16, I tried to recruit him off a team called Montreal Bourassa He was playing midget AAA hockey in the East End of Montreal. I tried like heck to get him to come. It was unbelievable. We were so close. We were so close to getting him. And he said, if I'm not an early pick in the Quebec League draft, then, I'll probably come. But he was. So he ended up going to St. Hyacinthe.
Yep. Pierre, I want to ask you, I heard you talking about that to Mitch the other day, and I wanted to ask you this all weekend.
Yep.
When you're scouting
Yep.
and you see a kid at a young age like that, and you just, what's it like when you just know, like that kid, he's going places. Like, it must be such a cool feeling as a scout.
It is. So the first time I ever saw that was watching Brian Leach at Avon Old Farms. I wrote it in a program. I said, this guy's going to be an NHL superstar and probably be a Hall of Famer.
Uh-huh.
I wrote that. I wrote that on a program. I remember seeing Lindros play at St. Michael's. It looked like he was going to commit to at the time, it looked like he was going to commit to Michigan. He didn't. He ended up being an Oshawa General. I remember seeing Brindamore play at Notre Dame in Saskatchewan. I remember seeing Manderville, who had a 13-year career in the NHL, play at Notre Dame. These are special, special players.
Yeah.
But when you see them, you're blown away. And I think the one thing that I remember the most about Marty was how mature he was in net. Like, he was only 16, but he was so mature. Like, there wasn't a lot of coaching that had to go into him. Like, he was ready. He was ready to play. You could just see it.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to close it off. We've got a video question from our good friend Evan. We missed these, Evan. I'm glad he sent it. So let's go to Evan's question right now.
Guys, I'll be honest. I think that Dubas's deal to get Karlsson last summer was a good one when you consider all of its components, the salary and contracts that Dubas was able to move out, and the cap space he was able to create. But there is no question that it left the Penguins' back end in an unbalanced state, and that they have been suffering for a lack of lockdown defender ability all season, which brings me to the player I think has been the most surprising and relieving player during this entertaining stretch that the Penguins have managed to put together here at the end. And that is Jack St. Ivany, coming in, making his debut as a rookie, looking as if he belongs here, as if he has been here, making heads-up plays with the puck that you would not expect a rookie to be able to make so calmly, and using his body very effectively in his own end to box out opposing players in front of the net. So am I allowed to look at St. Ivany and the effect he has had on the Penguins' decor and hope that things back there will sort themselves out for the Penguins next season?
What do you think, Pierre? I think it's a great
First
observation.
of all, Evan, great call on St. Ivany. Not a lot of kids come out of Manhattan Beach, California, and play the way this kid did. He was part of the U.S. National Team Development Program, went to Yale for 2 years, did well at Yale, transferred obviously to BC, did fantastically well at BC, was originally drafted by Philadelphia, by the way. So they must be happy there that he's playing in Pittsburgh. But I do think that everything Evan said there is spot on. He's vastly underrated because he doesn't make a lot of noise when he plays. He's just steady and stable and he's efficient. I guess it's a player you would call very efficient. They have another player there too out of Northeastern, Ryan Shea. Mm-hmm. Ryan Shea's really come on, and young Ludwig, I knew his dad really well. He's done a good job too. So they got some good stuff going on. Don't forget P.O. Joseph as well.
Yeah.
So there's actually some bright spots on their defense. Losing Brian Dumoulin, I know people in Pittsburgh say, well, he's older. We couldn't keep him. Brian was an important part of that team.
He was glue.
He's a glue guy who could really stop people, and he didn't produce a lot of offense. He didn't have to. That wasn't his job. And you think about losing a player like that for nothing, that's pretty tough. And he's, I know Seattle didn't make the playoffs this year, but he still had a pretty nice year. But I would say that, long story short, Evan's right on St. Ivany. That's like found money. That's a real good job by their scouts. And he's a player, it's like watching Ian Shane play at Cornell, the goalie, kid from Manhattan Beach, California. It's amazing. They're almost like, this is all part of the Gretzkyism of
I was just going to say
California. The Ducks coming in, Gretzky getting traded out of Edmonton into LA, and the Kings going on these big runs, and the Ducks winning the Cup in 2007 and all this stuff. It mattered.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And here, that's where a lot of the Kings live. A lot of the players tend to reside in Manhattan Beach. I remember being out there. I watched
I know a couple.
Oh yeah, and Pierre, I'll tell you that the first Super Bowl the Patriots ever won, that classic against the Rams with Vinatieri at the kick at the buzzer there. I watched that Super Bowl at the Shellback Tavern in Manhattan Beach, and I was sitting in there, and it was King stuff everywhere. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. They're really, and this is back in 2002. I'm like, they're really digging their hockey here. So now, 22 years later, you're starting to see kids pick it up and get noticed. So it's good.
Did you get ID'd that day?
I wish. I was young. There was many. It was a good moment. The funniest thing was, though, Pierre, was so I get in there with my ex-wife, and we're sitting down. And I'm like, "You notice anything about this?" And she goes, "What?" I go, "The whole bar of Rams fans. It was a Rams bar because the Rams used to be in L.A., right?
Yeah.
And they were in St. Louis at that time." And so I go, maybe we shouldn't stay here. And the bartender's like, "Nah, you're fine. I'm from Boston. I got your back." He goes, "Don't you worry."
That's good. That's really good.
Good time. All right, let's go to our factors before Factor sponsor and Manscaped before we close it out here. What do we got? Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. Head to factormeals.com/iTest50 and use the code iTest50 to get 50% off. Again, that's factormeals.com/iTest50. Use the code iTest50 to get 50% off. Pierre, did you bring any on your trip to South Carolina?
I did not.
You gotta re-up, eh?
I do.
All right. Me too. I gotta get those going again. All right, let's check out Manscaped here. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Go to manscaped.com and use the code iTest for 20% off and free shipping. Again, that's iTest for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Pierre, that was another great show. Really good talking to Sean Coffey. He did that last minute, so I want to thank him for jumping on with us last minute there. Really insightful stuff about Lane Hutson, and I'm looking forward to watching the kids debut with the Canadiens tonight.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I can't wait to watch it as well. Congratulations to Team Canada for winning the gold in overtime against Team USA. Congratulations to everybody involved in Utica. You did a fantastic job presenting hockey to the rest of the world. I thought it was great. And I'm so happy for Daniel Serdachny and her family with the golden goal. I think that's awesome. I'm really excited for the family.
Yep, and we're very happy for Rosa as well, who's having.
Yeah, Rosa, our friend, is doing great. So way to go, Rosa.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Thanks to everybody at TCS. We're really happy to have you on as a new sponsor. And
welcome aboard. Welcome to the iTest family. Pumped. Thank you to our production crew. Thank you to you in the comments section for all your wonderful questions. Evan, great one there. And we will talk to you tomorrow here on the iTest on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the iTest with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.